Have you ever spoken, pouring out a piece of your soul, only to be met with the unnerving stillness of an unlistening mind? You see the person before you. Their eyes are on you, they are nodding, perhaps even offering a placid, aha. Yet, you feel an unmistakable void, a chilling certainty that your words are not landing, that they are merely dissipating into the cluttered attic of a distracted mind. You are being heard, but you are not being listened to. In our modern world, we find ourselves in the midst of an unprecedented crisis, not a crisis of economy or politics, but a crisis of attention. Our minds, besieged by a relentless barrage of notifications, headlines, and algorithmically perfected distractions, have lost their native ability to be still. We have become champion multitaskers, skilled information skimmers, and expert surface-level communicators. But in our race for efficiency, we have sacrificed depth. In our quest to connect with everyone, everywhere, all at once, we have forgotten how to truly connect with the single human being right in front of us. We believe we are listening, but what are we truly doing? We are waiting for our turn to speak. We are formulating a rebuttal in our minds. We are connecting the other person's story to a better, more dramatic story of our own. We are diagnosing their problem and preparing a prescription of unsolicited advice. We are, in essence, listening to the cacophony of our own ego, while the person before us becomes little more than a soundbite. This is not a mere social inconvenience. It is a spiritual malady. The inability to listen deeply is the root of profound loneliness, the cause of countless misunderstandings, and the quiet destroyer of relationships. It is a sign that we have lost mastery over the one domain the Stoics believed was truly ours, our own mind. Stoicism, that ancient and profoundly practical philosophy forged in the crucible of Roman life, offers us a path back. Not through clever communication hacks or the 7 easy steps to becoming a better conversationalist, but through a radical and demanding discipline, the discipline of presence. For the Stoics, listening was not a soft skill to be listed on a resume. It was a cardinal virtue, an expression of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. It was the act of silencing the self to make space for the other. It was a moral duty. So, find a quiet space. Settle your mind. Let go of the urge to skip ahead. Be here, now. The journey to becoming a master listener, a true Stoic, begins not with a word, but with silence. Way 1, the sanctuary of silence. Before you can truly hear the world, you must first learn to listen to silence. This sounds like a paradox, a Zen koan designed to mystify. But it is the most practical starting point imaginable. Our lives are saturated with sound. We wake to an alarm, we work to the hum of computers, we commute with podcasts, we dine with the television, and we fall asleep to the endless scroll of social media. We have become so accustomed to auditory input that we fear its absence. Silence feels empty, awkward, even threatening. We rush to fill it with anything, meaningless chatter, background music, the noise of our own anxious thoughts, just to avoid the perceived void. But the Stoics understood that this constant noise, both external and internal, is the greatest impediment to wisdom. True clarity does not arise from accumulating more information, but from creating the inner space to process what is already there. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, did not write his meditations in a bustling throne room. He wrote them in the stark solitude of a military tent on the Germanic frontier, late at night, when the world had fallen quiet. It was in that profound silence that he could listen to the most important voice of all, the voice of his own reasoning mind, his hegemonikon. He sought to build what he called an inner citadel, a fortress of tranquility within his own soul that could not be breached by the chaos of war, plague, or political betrayal. That citadel is built brick by silent brick. Every day, for just 3 minutes, you can begin to lay the foundation for your own inner citadel. This is not meditation in the formal sense. You need no special cushion, no mantra, no app. You need only the courage to be still. Find a place where you will not be disturbed. Sit comfortably. And do nothing. Simply allow the world of sound to be as it is, without judgment and without engagement. At first, you will not hear silence. You will hear the opposite. You will notice the whir of the refrigerator, the distant drone of traffic, the frantic beating of your own heart. Your mind, like a spoiled child denied its favorite toy, will protest. It will serve you a buffet of worries, to-do lists, and fragmented memories. This is the inner noise, the mental static we use to drown out the stillness. Do not fight these thoughts. Do not try to empty your mind. That is a battle you will always lose. Simply observe them. Acknowledge them as you would acknowledge clouds passing in the sky. Ah, there is a thought about that email I need to send. There is a worry about tomorrow's meeting. Let them come, and let them go. Your task is not to silence your mind, but to stop participating in its chatter. A friend of mine, a high-powered attorney, once confessed to me that despite his professional success, he felt a deep and gnawing sense of disconnection. His days were a blur of meetings, calls, and legal briefs. His evenings were spent in a state of exhausted distraction. He was constantly talking, constantly thinking, but he never felt present. On my advice, he began a simple, non-negotiable ritual. Every morning, before he even looked at his phone, he would go to a specific chair in his living room, set a timer for 3 minutes, and sit in absolute silence. He said the first week was agonizing. His mind raced. He felt an almost physical urge to grab his phone. But he persisted. By the second week, something shifted. The inner noise began to quiet down. He started to notice his own breath. He felt the weight of his body in the chair. By the end of the month, he described the experience as coming home to himself. Those 3 minutes of silence became the anchor for his entire day. He found himself less reactive in meetings, more present with his family, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of inner calm. He hadn't added anything to his life, he had simply created a small sanctuary of subtraction. This is a profoundly Stoic practice. You are choosing a small, voluntary hardship, the discomfort of stillness, to inoculate yourself against the much larger, involuntary hardships of a reactive and distracted life. You are training your attention muscle. Each time you gently bring your focus back from a wandering thought to the silence of the room, you are performing a mental repetition, strengthening your ability to be present. When you emerge from these 3 minutes, the world will not have changed. The noise will still be there. But you will be different. Your auditory palate will have been cleansed. You will be better equipped to listen, not just with your ears, but with a mind that has been steadied and centered. You have reminded yourself that you are the master of your inner world, not its slave. This is the first, essential step. Because you cannot offer your presence to another until you have first learned to be present with yourself. And that presence is born, nurtured, and sustained in the sanctuary of silence. Way 2, listening as a sound engineer. When the great composer Ludwig van Beethoven began to lose his hearing in his late 20s, the world of sound, his very reason for being, started to fade into a muffled, confusing fog. For a musician, this is a fate worse than death. Yet, Beethoven did not surrender to despair. He did not abandon his art. Instead, he learned to listen in a new, more profound way. He would place a special rod on his piano and clench it in his teeth, feeling the vibrations of the notes travel through his jawbone directly to his inner ear. He would walk for hours in the Vienna woods, not hearing the birdsong as he once did, but observing it, internalizing its patterns, its rhythms, its life force. He became a master of listening beyond the ear. He learned to separate the layers of reality, the vibration, the structure, the emotion, from the mere auditory signal. This is why his late works, like the magnificent Ninth Symphony, composed when he was almost completely deaf, are so emotionally powerful. He was no longer just hearing music, he was communing with its very essence. This practice of deep, layered listening is not just for musical geniuses. It is a trainable skill, a powerful Stoic tool for navigating the sonic chaos of our world. We are constantly immersed in a complex soundscape, yet we rarely take the time to deconstruct it. We hear it all as one undifferentiated block of noise. The practice of listening like a sound engineer is the art of consciously separating these layers, of discerning the individual instruments in the orchestra of everyday life. Imagine you are sitting in a bustling cafe. Instead of letting the wall of sound wash over you, begin to dissect it with the precision of a sound engineer at a mixing board. First, isolate the most prominent sound. Perhaps it is the loud, rhythmic grinding of the espresso machine. Focus on it exclusively for a moment. Notice its pitch, its texture, the way it starts and stops. It is not just noise, it is a mechanical heartbeat. Now, mentally slide that fader down and bring up another layer. The murmur of conversations around you. Don't try to understand the words. Instead, listen to the musicality of the voices, the rise and fall of intonation, the sudden bursts of laughter, the low, confidential tones. Each table is playing its own unique melody. Next, listen for the subtler, background sounds. The gentle clinking of ceramic cups on saucers. The quiet rustle of a newspaper being turned. The soft tapping of fingers on a keyboard. These are the ambient tracks, the details that create the atmosphere of the room. Finally, listen for the sounds outside, the distant wail of a siren, the rumble of a passing bus. These sounds place your immediate environment within a larger context. This is more than just a mindfulness exercise. It is a profound training in focus and presence, two cornerstones of the Stoic mindset. As Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself, the goal is to see things as they are, stripped of the labels and judgments we impose upon them. When you listen to the world in this layered way, you are doing just that. The irritating roar of the coffee machine becomes a simple vibration. The distracting chatter becomes mere human sound. You are observing reality without being overwhelmed by it. A therapist I know uses a version of this technique in her practice. She told me that when a patient is speaking, she tries to listen not just to their words, but to the unspoken music beneath them. She listens for the slight hesitation before a difficult admission, a rest in the musical score. She hears the subtle increase in pace when they speak about something that excites them, an accelerando. She notices the flat, monotonic delivery when they describe a moment of deep sadness, a passage played without dynamics. By listening like a sound engineer, she hears the emotional subtext, the story that the words alone cannot tell. This allows her to understand her patients on a much deeper level, not because she is a mind reader, but because she is a master listener. This practice directly translates to our daily conversations. When you are listening to a friend, a partner, or a child, can you hear the layers in their communication? Can you hear the words they are saying, but also the emotion coloring those words? Can you sense the unspoken fear beneath their anger, or the vulnerability hidden behind their bravado? To cultivate this skill, you don't need a mixing board. You just need intention. Start today. Wherever you are, take 60 seconds to act as a sound engineer. Identify 3 distinct layers of sound in your environment. This simple act pulls you out of your mental chatter and anchors you firmly in the present moment. The more you practice this with the world around you, the more adept you will become at applying it to the people within it. You will learn to separate the signal from the noise, the message from the static. And in doing so, you will begin to hear what is truly being said, often for the very first time. Way 3, the music of the mundane. There is a story often told in Zen circles about a young, eager monk who approaches his master. "Master," he asks, "how can I attain enlightenment?" The master, who is sipping tea, simply looks at him and says, "Do you hear the birds singing in the bamboo grove outside?" The monk falls silent and listens. Indeed, he can hear them. "Yes, master, I do," he replies. The master smiles gently. "Then go," he says, "and enter from there." This story, with its beautiful simplicity, captures a profound Stoic truth. We often seek wisdom, peace, and presence in grand, extraordinary experiences, in silent retreats, in breathtaking landscapes, in profound philosophical texts. But the Stoics, much like the Zen masters, taught that the gateway to a meaningful life is not found in the extraordinary. It is found in paying deep, respectful attention to the ordinary, the mundane, the things we so often overlook. Our lives are filled with a soundtrack of mundane sounds, the steady hum of the dishwasher, the rhythmic click of a turning signal, the gentle sigh of the wind against a windowpane. We are conditioned to tune these sounds out. We see them as auditory clutter, background noise to be ignored or, worse, drowned out with more stimulating input like music or podcasts. But in doing so, we miss a precious opportunity. These mundane sounds are an ever-present invitation to return to the here and now. They are the music of a life being lived. To enjoy the music of the mundane is to practice presence in its most humble and accessible form. It is a Stoic discipline of the highest order. Seneca, in his letters, often wrote about finding contentment in simple things, a plain meal, a walk in his garden, a conversation with a friend. He understood that a mind that requires constant novelty and excitement to feel alive is a mind that is enslaved. But a mind that can find richness and meaning in the familiar is a mind that is truly free. When you choose to consciously listen to an ordinary sound, you are performing a revolutionary act in our age of distraction. Consider the act of washing dishes. Most of us see it as a chore to be completed as quickly as possible, often with the television blaring or a podcast playing. But what if, for just once, you did it in silence? What if you chose to listen? You would hear the rush of warm water over your hands. You would hear the soft, percussive scrape of the sponge against the plate. You would hear the delicate, glassy clink of a clean dish being placed on the rack. In that moment, you are not just washing dishes. You are engaged in a symphony of the senses. You are fully present. You are anchoring your awareness in a simple, tangible reality. This is not about romanticizing chores. It is about recognizing that every moment, no matter how mundane, contains an opportunity to train your attention. This attentional muscle, as psychologists call it, is governed by the prefrontal cortex. When you consciously direct your focus to a single, sustained stimulus, like the sound of the washing machine in its spin cycle, you are strengthening this part of your brain. You are building your capacity for deep focus, emotional regulation, and impulse control. Think of the legendary composer and conductor, Leonard Bernstein. He was famous for his ability to hear every single detail in a 100-piece orchestra. He could discern the almost imperceptible sound of a violinist's finger sliding on a string, a detail that most of us would never notice. His genius was not just in his musicality, but in the sheer power of his attention, an attention that was undoubtedly honed by listening deeply to everything, not just the grand symphonies. He found music in all things. You can cultivate this same quality of attention. Start with a simple, practical exercise, a sound journal. For the next week, take a moment each day to identify and listen to one mundane sound for a full minute. It could be the sound of your own breathing, the ticking of a clock, or the patter of rain on the roof. After that minute, write down just one sentence describing it. The rain sounds like 1,000 tiny fingers drumming on the world. The clock ticks with a patient, steady resolve. This practice does two things. First, it forces you to slow down and be present. Second, it trains you to find nuance and beauty in the overlooked. It transforms your relationship with your environment from one of passive existence to one of active engagement. Stoicism does not ask us to escape the world. It asks us to inhabit it more fully. When you can find a moment of peace in the hum of a refrigerator, you have discovered a secret that few people know. You have realized that tranquility is not a destination you must travel to. It is a quality of attention that you can cultivate, right here, right now, in the heart of your ordinary life. Way 4, shifting your listening stance. In any conversation, we are not just listening, we are occupying a certain stance. We are listening as someone. Most of the time, without even realizing it, we adopt one of 3 unproductive stances, all of which are driven by the ever-present human ego. First, there is the stance of the debater. The debater listens not to understand, but to refute. Their mind is a courtroom, and every word the other person says is evidence to be cross-examined. They are hunting for logical fallacies, inconsistencies, and points of weakness. As the other person speaks, the debater is not truly hearing them, they are silently rehearsing their brilliant, devastating rebuttal. Their goal is not connection, but victory. Second, we have the stance of the judge. The judge listens through a thick filter of their own biases, beliefs, and past experiences. They are not hearing what is being said, but are constantly measuring it against their own internal rubric of what is right, wrong, smart, or foolish. They have already reached a verdict before the testimony is complete. Their listening is an act of categorization, not of exploration. Finally, there is the stance of the fixer. The fixer listens with the ear of a mechanic. They hear the other person's pain or confusion as a problem to be solved. They are impatient with the messy details of emotion and are eager to jump in with solutions, advice, and action plans. While often well-intentioned, the fixer inadvertently communicates a subtle message: your feelings are an inconvenience that I need to resolve so we can move on. They rob the other person of the space to simply feel and be heard. Stoic philosophy calls us to transcend these ego-driven stances. It asks us to adopt a fourth, more powerful position, the stance of the curious human. This stance is grounded in humility, presence, and a genuine desire to understand another's world, not to conquer, judge, or fix it. To listen from this stance is to change the very nature of the conversation. The life of Fred Rogers, the beloved host of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, is a masterclass in this kind of listening. There is a famous story of his encounter with a young boy named Jeff, who was quadriplegic and used a wheelchair. In a world that either pitted Jeff or ignored him, Rogers did something radical. He sat down on the floor, bringing himself to Jeff's eye level. He didn't ask a barrage of questions about his condition. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He simply looked at Jeff, man to man, and listened. He listened to the boy's words about his life, his feelings, his pet fish. But more than that, he listened to the boy's presence. He created a space of such profound, non-judgmental acceptance that the boy felt truly seen, perhaps for the first time. At the end of their conversation, Jeff said something that captures the power of this listening stance perfectly: "Thank you for really listening to me." He didn't say thank you for the advice or thank you for the help. He said thank you for listening. To shift your listening stance is a conscious, deliberate act of self-mastery, a core tenet of Stoicism. It requires you to notice when your ego is trying to take the stage as the debater, judge, or fixer, and to gently but firmly ask it to step aside. It requires what philosophers call epistemic humility, the profound recognition that your perspective is not the only one, that your experience is not universal, and that you do not have all the answers. When you listen as a curious human, your entire posture changes, both literally and figuratively. You lean in. Your questions are different. Instead of asking, "Why didn't you just do this?" you ask, "What was that like for you?" Instead of thinking, "That's not how it happened," you think, "Tell me more about your perspective." This shift is not easy. Our egos are powerful and accustomed to being in control. But you can begin to practice it with a simple exercise. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement or a difficult conversation, make a conscious vow to yourself: for the next 5 minutes, my only goal is to understand the other person's point of view as deeply as they understand it themselves. I will not argue. I will not correct. I will only listen and ask clarifying questions. In those 5 minutes, you are not surrendering your own beliefs. You are temporarily suspending your ego for the higher purpose of understanding. This is a courageous act. You are choosing connection over being right. You are practicing the Stoic virtue of justice, giving the other person what they are due, which is your full, respectful, and curious attention. When you can master the art of shifting your listening stance, you unlock a new level of communication. Conversations cease to be battles to be won and instead become worlds to be explored. And you will find that the person who is most willing to understand is often the person who is most deeply respected and, ultimately, the most persuasive. Way 5, the Rasa Framework, a Stoic's Toolkit. While Stoic philosophy provides the profound why behind deep listening, the pursuit of wisdom, self-mastery, and virtue, we sometimes need a practical how. How, in the heat of a real conversation, can we put these noble ideals into practice? Julian Treasure, a renowned sound and communication expert, offers a beautifully simple yet powerful framework that can serve as a Stoics toolkit. He calls it RASA, an acronym that stands for receive, appreciate, summarize, and ask. Let's break down this framework, not as a mere communication technique, but as a concrete embodiment of Stoic principles. R is for receive. This is the foundation. Receiving means paying full attention to the person speaking. It means putting down your phone, turning away from your computer screen, and orienting your body towards them. It means silencing your internal monologue and truly taking in their words, their tone, and their body language without interruption. This is the Stoic practice of prosoke, or mindfulness, in action. You are choosing to be fully present, to control your attention, and to resist the impulse to distract yourself or hijack the conversation. When you truly receive, you are offering the other person the rare and precious gift of your undivided focus. A is for appreciate. This is the act of providing small, nonverbal or minimal verbal cues to show that you are engaged. It's the simple nod of the head, the gentle the quiet I see. These are not empty gestures. They are affirmations. They are the social lubricant that makes the speaker feel safe and acknowledged. In a Stoic sense, this is an act of respect and justice. You are acknowledging the other person's humanity and the value of what they are sharing. You are communicating, I am with you on this journey. Please continue. This small act of appreciation keeps the channel of communication open and flowing. S is for summarize. This is perhaps the most powerful and most often neglected step. Summarizing is the act of paraphrasing what you've just heard, of playing back the essence of the other person's message in your own words. It sounds like, so, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're feeling overwhelmed because your boss has given you a new project on top of your existing workload, and you're worried you won't be able to deliver on time. Is that right? This act is transformative for two reasons. First, it forces you, the listener, to have actually listened. You cannot summarize what you have not received and processed. It compels you to distill the core message, which is an exercise in the Stoic virtue of wisdom, of seeing things clearly and discerning what is essential. Second, for the speaker, being summarized is a profoundly validating experience. It is the ultimate proof that they have been heard and understood. It makes them feel seen. The phrase, "Is that right?" at the end is crucial. It is an act of humility, turning the summary into a question, giving the speaker the power to correct or clarify, ensuring that the understanding is accurate. A is for ask. After you have received, appreciated, and summarized, the final step is to ask open-ended, clarifying questions. Notice the difference between a closed question like, "So you're going to quit your job," and an open question like, "What do you think you might do next?" or "How did that make you feel?" Open-ended questions are invitations. They create more space for the speaker to explore their own thoughts and feelings. They are born not from a desire to fix, but from a genuine curiosity. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic ideal of the learner. You are not assuming you know the answer, you are humbly seeking to understand more deeply. A former FBI hostage negotiator once explained to me that his entire strategy was built on these principles. When dealing with a person in a high-stakes crisis, he would never argue or command. He would receive their demands and their anger without judgment. He would appreciate their feelings with phrases like, "I can hear how frustrated you are." He would constantly summarize their position, "So what you're saying is, you feel trapped and you don't see another way out." And he would ask open-ended questions, "Help me understand what led to this point." He was using the RASA framework to de-escalate, build trust, and create a connection under the most extreme pressure. You do not need to be in a hostage negotiation to use this powerful tool. Try it in your next conversation with your partner, your child, or a colleague. Commit to the 4 steps. Receive without interrupting. Appreciate with a nod. Summarize what you heard. And ask a genuine question. You will find that the quality of your conversations will deepen almost instantly. You are no longer just talking, you are practicing a discipline. You are choosing to respond with the clarity, respect, and wisdom of a Stoic. Way 6. Listening to your inner resistance. There is a form of listening that is often the most difficult, yet it holds the key to profound self-knowledge and emotional mastery. It is the act of listening not to the person in front of you, but to the resistance that arises within you as they speak. Think of the last time someone said something that made you feel a flash of anger, a sting of defensiveness, or a wave of anxiety. Perhaps a colleague gave you some unsolicited, constructive criticism. Maybe your partner brought up a past mistake you had made. Or perhaps a friend shared a political opinion that was the polar opposite of your own. In that instant, an inner storm likely began to brew. Your heart rate increased. Your jaw tensed. Your mind started racing, preparing for battle. This is our natural, instinctive response. But Stoicism teaches us to rise above instinct. Epictetus gave us one of the most powerful maxims in all of philosophy: it's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things. The colleague's words themselves are neutral, it is your judgment that they are an insult that causes the pain. Your partner's reminder of a mistake is a fact, it is your judgment that it is an attack that sparks the defensiveness. The moment you feel that inner resistance, that emotional trigger, you are at a critical fork in the road. The path of reactivity is to lash out, to defend your ego, to shut down the conversation. This is the path of the untrained mind, the mind that is a slave to its own impulses. But there is another path, the path of the Stoic. This path requires you to do something incredibly difficult, to pause. In that pause, you turn your attention inward. Instead of focusing on the external speaker, you listen to the internal turmoil. You ask yourself a series of diagnostic questions. What exactly am I feeling right now? Is it anger? Fear? Shame? Naming the emotion is the first step to taming it. Why is this specific comment upsetting me so much? What nerve has it touched? What belief or insecurity within me is being threatened right now? This is the practice of self-observation at its most courageous. You are choosing to sit with your discomfort rather than immediately trying to expel it. You are treating your emotional reaction not as an enemy to be vanquished, but as a messenger to be interrogated. And this messenger often carries vital information about your own inner landscape, your hidden fears, your wounded pride, your unresolved issues. The story of Viktor Frankl, the neurologist and psychiatrist who survived the horrors of Auschwitz, is the ultimate testament to this principle. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl describes how, even in the face of unimaginable cruelty and degradation, he found a sliver of freedom. The Nazi guards could control his body, his food, his environment. But they could not control his response. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Frankl lived this philosophy. When a guard would insult him, instead of being consumed by reactive hatred, he would mentally step back and observe his own feelings. He would study the guard's psychology. He would choose to find meaning even in his suffering. This inner work, this listening to his own resistance and choosing his response, is what kept his spirit alive when everything else was stripped away. You can apply this same principle in your daily life. The next time you are in a conversation and feel that familiar sting of defensiveness, try this exercise. Mentally, or even in a journal later, log the trigger. The stimulus: what exact words were said? The response: what was my immediate emotional and physical reaction? E.g., I felt a hot flash of anger, my fists clenched. The judgment: what story did I tell myself about those words? E.g., he thinks I'm incompetent. The deeper question: what old wound or insecurity might this be connected to? E.g., I've always been afraid of not being good enough. This is not easy work. It requires honesty and courage. But it is the path to true emotional freedom. When you listen to your inner resistance, you begin to understand your own triggers. And once you understand them, they lose their power over you. You are no longer a puppet pulled by the strings of your past wounds. You become the calm observer, the master of your inner citadel. This practice transforms every difficult conversation from a potential battle into a potential classroom. Every insult, every criticism, every disagreement becomes an opportunity not just to learn about the other person, but to learn about the deepest workings of your own mind. Way 7, the gift of unresponsive listening. We have arrived at the final, and perhaps most challenging, practice in our Stoic journey of listening. It is the art of listening without the intent to respond. In a world that prizes witty comebacks, insightful analysis, and immediate solutions, choosing to offer only your silent, unwavering presence can feel like a radical, even subversive, act. Yet, it is often the most compassionate and powerful gift you can give to another human being. Consider a time when you were in true pain. Not a simple problem to be solved, but a deep grief, a confusing crossroads, or a profound sense of failure. You summon the courage to share your vulnerability with a friend. As you speak, you are not looking for an answer. You are simply trying to give voice to the chaos inside you. And then, your friend interrupts. They mean well. They say, "I know exactly how you feel. One time, and proceed to tell their own story, effectively centering the conversation back on themselves. Or they say, "You know what you should do," and offer a list of solutions, treating your complex pain like a leaky faucet that just needs the right tool. In that moment, despite their good intentions, how do you feel? Often, you feel subtly dismissed. Your space has been invaded. Your story has been cut short. The sacred act of bearing witness has been replaced by the profane act of problem solving. Stoic philosophy teaches us the immense value of restraint. It is not about being cold or emotionless. It is about understanding that sometimes, our ego-driven need to contribute, to fix, to speak, is precisely what gets in the way of true connection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." In the context of another's deep pain, you are not the subject matter expert. They are. Your role is not to be a fountain of wisdom, but a vessel of quiet presence. To listen without responding is to offer what psychologist Carl Rogers called unconditional positive regard. It is to create a sanctuary of safety where the other person can be fully themselves, without fear of judgment, interruption, or unsolicited advice. It is to communicate with your silence, "I am here with you. I am not going to try to fix you. I am not going to rush your process. Your story is safe with me." This is an act of profound humility and courage. It requires you to tame your ego's desperate urge to be useful, to prove its worth. It asks you to trust that your silent, attentive presence is enough. More than enough, it is often exactly what is needed. A hospice nurse once shared a powerful lesson with me. She said that in her early years, she always felt the need to say something comforting to her dying patients and their families. She would search for the right words, the perfect platitude. But over time, she learned that the most profound moments of connection happened when she said nothing at all. They happened when she simply sat by a bedside, holding a hand, and shared the silence. Her presence spoke more eloquently than any words ever could. She was not there to fix the unfixable. She was there to bear witness to the sacred and the difficult. She was practicing unresponsive listening. You can practice this gift in your own life. The next time a loved one comes to you in a state of true distress, make a conscious vow to yourself. For this conversation, I will not offer any advice unless I am explicitly asked. I will not share a story of my own. My only job is to listen. My only job is to be here. At first, this will feel incredibly uncomfortable. The silence after they stop speaking will feel long. You will feel an intense pressure to fill it. Resist that pressure. Stay with them in that space. You will be amazed at what happens. Often, in the safety of that shared silence, they will go deeper. They will find their own clarity. They will come to their own solutions. You have not solved their problem for them, you have created the sacred space in which they could solve it for themselves. This is the pinnacle of Stoic listening. It is the ultimate act of setting aside the self for the sake of another. It is the recognition that true strength often lies not in what we do, but in what we choose not to do. It is the understanding that your quiet, unwavering, compassionate presence may be the most powerful and healing force you possess. Conclusion. Our journey through the lost art of listening has brought us from the foundational quiet of the sanctuary of silence to the compassionate stillness of unresponsive listening. We have learned to deconstruct the world's noise by becoming a sound engineer, to find presence in the music of the mundane, and to transform conversations by shifting our listening stance. We have armed ourselves with the practical toolkit of the Rasa framework and dared to look inward, to listen to our own resistance. Each of these 7 ways is more than a technique, it is a thread in the larger tapestry of a Stoic life. They teach us that listening is not something that happens passively with our ears, but something we do actively and intentionally with our entire being. It is a discipline of the mind, a posture of the soul, and a virtue of the heart. To live as a Stoic is to live with presence, wisdom, and self-mastery. And there is no more fundamental training ground for these virtues than the simple, sacred act of listening. When you choose to listen deeply, you are choosing to control your impulses, to quiet your ego, and to see the world, and the people in it, with greater clarity and compassion. You are no longer a reactive being, tossed about by the waves of external chaos and internal turmoil. You become the calm harbor, the steady anchor, the master of your inner citadel. The world does not need another loud voice. It is drowning in them. What the world needs, what your relationships need, what your own soul needs, is the quiet strength of a true listener. The journey begins now, with your very next conversation. Choose to be present. Choose to understand. Choose to listen. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel the call to become a better listener, not just for others, but for yourself, then take a moment to support this journey. Like this video to help this wisdom find others who need it. Leave a comment below sharing which of these 7 ways you will practice first, your commitment may inspire another. And, most importantly, subscribe to BAudio and click the notification bell, so you never miss a step on our shared path toward a calmer, wiser, and more connected life. Thank you for listening.